So it's funny how things tie together and different things push you to get other stuff done. I'm thinking about this Britannia and getting the plugs made for the safety valves so that I can do a hydraulic test tomorrow. But the workshop wasn't set up, lathes on the floor. So last night, friends came round and we got the machines in. Here you go. So it's funny how one thing can push you into sorting and finishing something else and getting cracking on something else. So receiving this Britannia, want to get a boiler test done tomorrow now. So I needed plugs for the safety valves. Now I could have spoken to Dave and seen if he could brought his along. But I will need some long term for myself. So I would rather make them for myself. So I invited a couple of guys round, and as you can see, we have now got the machinery into the workshop. Here's a couple of pictures from last night. I didn't take much. I intended to do a time lapse of it all going in, but I just didn't get around to it, sorry. So now we're in, and I've got to say, it's starting to look a lot like a workshop. The lathe, the mill, exactly where I said they were going to be. The drill, I decided to put it over here because I did put the bandsaw there, but as I'd put on the drawing. But whether it's long term or not, I don't know. But these shelves, which will go eventually, didn't leave much clearance once you had the bandsaw in there. So that's going to be the drill position. It did originally go with the table in against the wall, the other side of that bit sticking out, but that made it closer to the mill, and we didn't really feel it was a nice clearance around the mill to work the machine. Again, long term that might move anyway, that the drawers might disappear and I might make a bespoke bench for the drill, but for now that's what's there, and that's what it's getting. So next job, having put the machines on the bases, I need to rewire the machine. There's the cable on the floor which needs to go into that box. Unfortunately, just sticking it in the hole doesn't work. Same with the mill. This wire needs to go up in there somehow. But for now, where this then goes into that goes into the box there. Same on the lathe. I haven't got any spurs on the wall yet. So do I A, jam those 3 wires into the plug socket? No. Do I B, put a 13 amp plug on the end of there? Do I C, take the front off the socket and wire that into the back of the socket? I'd go with B, put a 13 amp plug on the end. I'll just do one, runs both machines. But then I thought, hey, I've got one somewhere. So I hunted in these 2 boxes. I came out here. I gradually took the stack of boxes down, put them over here. Went through all of those boxes, went through that box. That's all airline stuff anyway. I went through those 2 boxes and eventually found it in the 9th box I looked in. So I've got a lead with a 13 amp plug and a 16 amp plug. So all I need to do is wire the boxes in to the start stops and then plug that into the machines. So let's crack on. Fortunately, I've thought ahead when I took the things apart, and as you can see here and here, I took some photos as it came apart to remind me how it goes back together. So hopefully I've remembered to edit them into the video and you can see them now. You'll have seen them. So I'm going to get them wired up and then hopefully I can make some plugs. So wired them up now and I can think about getting back to work. I do have, which I want to put on the wall, something I've always found very useful, excuse me, a Myford chart. Unfortunately, although I found my staples, I can't find my staple gun. So this is just going to have to stay on the side for the moment, and I will put that up as and when I find the staple gun. So for now, let's get on with making the plugs. And thought I would just check that the thread fitted before I parted it off. So all good. So where possible, I like to multi-purpose my plugs. For example, this one that I've got, don't know if you can see it, it's 3832, I think. Does one of the safety valves on one of my engines, I think. Does something. But at the big end, I've also drilled and tapped to do a different size. And I'm going to do the same here. So I've got the adapter that I'm making. So I've made one plug. I'm going to make one adapter to take the 1/440 for the test pump at the club. But the pressure gauge has already got this little adapter on it, so it's a bigger union on the engine. And ordinarily I'd just take the whole gauge off, but since it's easier to take that off, rather than take it off again, I've looked at that thread, it's 1/440. So I'm going to put a 1/440 female into the big end of the plug. I've already done the 3826 on the outside and do 1/440 on the inside. So I can use one plug to do both jobs. So I'm off to my Myford chart that I've rolled up. I'm going to check out the drilling tapping size for 1/440, find the tap, and we're away. And there we have two safety valve plugs, one with a 1/440 drill through so we can test the boiler, and the other just a plain plug. Like I said, I've drilled and tapped the back side of this for 1/440, although for the first steam test, first hydraulic rather, it's 80 psi that we run at, so I only need to test the boiler to 120, so that gauge can actually stay on for the hydraulic test. But at least I know that the next time I go to test it in a year's time for the steam test, I will have a plug or an adapter to be able to test the gauge. So there we go, that's done. So the next thing I'd like to do is the union for the hand pump. So when I do it up, that's going to be in the way to tighten it up. So what I'm going to try to do is put a extension on the end of this one, screw it on, and then the union will be a bit more accessible. So that will be a 5/16 32 female thread, step down 5/16 32 male thread, with a taper in the end for the cone. The last job before we can do a boiler test tomorrow, hopefully it will be needed, because we'll be doing a hydraulic test and then hopefully a steam test, assuming we pass the hydraulic. I am cutting a bit of aluminium at the moment, and I need to make an adapter so that my blower will fit inside the chimney, because as you can imagine it's being a 3.5, it's only got an inch bore on the chimney, but my blower is about 1.25 inches, something like that, 1.8 inches diameter on the end. So we're going to make a little adapter to suit that. And as the pile of swarf would testify, here is the finished article. It clips nicely onto the blower, and I'd forgotten, but because of one of our chimneys, there's a taper on the blower, so I had to machine a slight taper inside this, which made it more awkward. While we go to the engine, I'll just say I bored this first, and I turned it around, held it on the outside, turned the spigot, bored it through from this end, spun it around again and just cleaned up the outside. So there we go. That should be pretty stable. Find out tomorrow. And there we go. As far as I can work out, that is everything ready for tomorrow. I just need to load it in the car and take it down for a boiler test. So hopefully you've enjoyed this instalment, and you like, subscribe, all that jazz. Tell me what you think. Yeah, I will try and get video and pictures of what happens tomorrow. A bit short on time tomorrow, so I won't get back because we've got guests, but yeah, hopefully I'll get a few laps on track. See you then.